All right, everybody. Hey, welcome back. I've got my friend Daniel O'Neill with me today. And after our time together, I know you're going to love hearing from Daniel. Just to give you a little bit of background, he's a writer, an author, a consultant. He's written several books, actually, award-winning author. One is Nobody Can Take It Away From You. One is Racing Death, A Radical Pursuit, actually, which I know you and I talked about when we actually met. And a children's book as well, The Junkyard Dog. So to give you a bit of perspective too, I mean, this is a guy that's done a lot of cool things, and some of those things being he's done Ironmans, triathlons, ultramarathons, week-long cycling adventures, and a whole bunch of stuff. So this is someone that understands the physical side of things, the emotional side of things, the spiritual side of things, and got some great mental strengths that we're going to talk about too. And Daniel, I don't exactly know what these mean, so I can't wait to jump into these. But I know you told me a Lifeforce Energy and Rewilding consultant, so I want to hear all about that. And I know you help individuals and corporations really creating cultures and environments through certain principles you teach in the 7 UNmountains, which we're also going to talk about too. So Daniel, hey, thanks for being here, my friend.
Hey, it is really good to be here. It's pretty exciting when you hear yourself introduced that way. You know, you take a look at it and go, "Wow, that's exciting." But yeah, I've had a blessed life, buddy. You know,
Yeah.
there's always those moments in life that challenge us, but to take those challenges and turn them into positive is something I've been blessed to do. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I keep being able to rock the things I love to do, and to get the opportunity to share with people some of that stuff really is it is a gift. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. And I know too, because you've done all these things now. What I found fascinating, though, I always love hearing this different stories, but your background is entirely different. Your previous career, anyways, very different from any of this stuff. Why don't you talk a little bit about, I guess, what led you into this space that you're in now?
Yeah, so I spent 37 years in the transit industry between Edmonton and Sherwood Park. My job title was called Transit Inspector, which was a very diverse job. And my main function, the most important function, is I'm a forensic collision investigator.
Mm.
So spent a lot of time investigating collisions. And when you're investigating a collision from that aspect, what you're looking at is legalities. That was my
Mm.
sole responsibility, was to protect the properties and make sure that whatever the outcome was, the dollar value was always a factor.
Mm.
But I also was blessed to lead a team of people. I got to build teams. I got to help people on their career paths, set up their career paths and stuff. So it was a very diverse job that allowed me to take a lot of training, get a lot of skills, and dive into areas where I probably wouldn't have gone without that the broad spectrum of the job. So yeah, it was a very, very cool career.
Mm-hmm.
And when I decided that I was going to retire, I'd already figured out I was going to go into the consulting. I was going to go into that
Mm-hmm.
component because I love working with people.
Mm.
There's. I think it's a really cool thing as a coach or a consultant when someone will invite you into their life to achieve one of their goals, to
Mm.
help them progress to something they're trying to attain. And when you get that opportunity to be invited in, there's magic that happens. There's so many wonderful components of life that come to the forefront that we just get to, we get to dive in. So that's exciting for me. Through my own personal growth, playing sports, going into Kung Fu, the Ironmans, the Ultramarathons and everything, there's always been this component of energy.
Mm.
I've always really liked the whole idea and the philosophy and the truth and the science of qi, or Gijong energy. So we define it as life force energy.
Mm.
You can call it universe, God, whatever you want to call it. There is an energy that is in all of creation that we all share.
That's right.
So I've been able to dive into that and really explore that in my own life. And that's the base of what I do in my consulting, because cultures and environments come from that energy. And if we have the ability to really consciously focus and intentionally look into what we want to create in our culture and
Mm-hmm.
environment,
Mm-hmm.
we're setting ourselves up for just really that pinnacle of being able to achieve what we're setting out to achieve. So yeah, it all just, it kind of flowed, like, sometimes life just gives you these glimpses and insights that you catch and you go, yeah, this is where I'm meant to go. And you follow the path, and sometimes it gives you what you're looking for, and other times it takes you to different areas. So
Mm.
that's, that was my career path, and yeah, very blessed guy.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm curious on one of your books, the title, "Racing Death:
Yeah.
A Radical Pursuit." Can you expand a bit on that concept?
Yeah. So what I noticed through my own pursuits and stuff is I met a lot of people that, and this will sound judgmental, and it's not meant to be judgmental, but there was a lot of people that weren't alive. They
Mm-hmm.
were, they're living life, but they're not alive. They're living dead. They're
Mm-hmm.
not in good spaces with their own mental well-being, their spiritual, physical, and they're not even showing up in life. They're plodding along. And I thought it's really sad when people are you know in this space where they believe that that's their only option. It's their only means of being alive. And I'm kind of I've always been a little bit of a person that pushes the boundaries, that likes to say, hey, why are we doing it this way? Why is something set up this way? Is there a better way of doing it? So the racing death concept is that when we're fully alive, when we are engaged in our life, when we are saying, you know what, I'm going to try this. I don't know the path. I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there. I'm going to take that leap of faith. We're living a life where we're racing that death, that I call it the status quo living,
Mm.
where there's this belief that if we just follow the status quo, everything will be all right.
Right.
You know, we'll get to where we're going. And a lot of times it can. But I met a lot of unhappy people that were following the status quo, and they didn't know what the process was to shift that energy. So
Yeah.
yeah, racing death is basically a metaphor for, find your path, create your
Mm.
path,
Mm-hmm.
really do that inner work where you go to places sometimes we don't want to go,
Mm-hmm.
get into the shadow, look
Mm-hmm.
at, what we call mistakes or failures, and say, well, were they really, or were they, learning an opportunity, growth opportunities?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, racing death was just kind of that metaphor for, I'm not going to live a life where I'm dying. I'm
Mm.
going to, we're all going to get to that point where our body's going to time out, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
that's an inevitability.
Mm-hmm.
But do we focus on that, or do we choose to say that in this lifetime, I have the ability to create so many living experiences
Mm-hmm.
that will, set up, my legacy for the people that follow me. And then, so yeah, it's Racing Death, a Radical Pursuit. And um, I've always loved to look at the etymology of words, like where do they come from? And
Mm-hmm.
radical is kind of a word I think we look at in society as, well, it's not really something you want to be. A radical can be a negative
Sure.
definition, a negative perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to the Latin root of the word, it means to go back to the root of.
Hmm.
And that for me was a huge shift when I learned to go to the root of who Daniel is.
Mm,
You know, take away all that conditioning, take away all of the things that I had to be, um, that I thought I had to be. And
mm-hmm,
when I got to the root of Daniel, I saw myself in a very different light, and I saw that, you know what, there's so many things that I can do outside of that status quo living that, they made my heart shine, they made my soul shine. So
mm,
jumping in and taking that leap of faith and just going, you know what, there's a perspective, there's a side of each of us that if we're willing to kind of get a little bit radical
mm-hmm,
and race death, like don't just accept that,
mm-hmm,
maybe you think you're a certain way.
mm-hmm,
We're conditioned very often in early life to believe certain things about us by well-meaning people that want us to succeed.
mm-hmm,
They're coming from their perspective, right?
mm-hmm.
So when I started to get radical and race death, yeah, I it changed the energy of my whole world.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I think as you talk about the status quo and how many people are living that, you mentioned that some people can get what they want. I don't think you're ever going to be happy following the status quo,
no,
and ultimately the reason being is that in that environment, you're letting other people and or cultures think for you, right? You talk a lot about conditioning, but that's not living to me. I mean, that's just being unconscious in your life and
exactly. That's
going
a
through the motions.
yeah, that's a perfect way to put it, right? Like being unconscious, and
Mm.
um, we're conditioned to
Oh,
be
for sure.
unconscious. We're expected almost in a
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
Um, and to have that awakening,
Mm-hmm.
to have that experience where you understand that,
Mm.
and you give yourself, you give yourself peace around who you've been, right?
Mm. Mm.
Like we're we're always in a process. That's what I found. We're always in a
Yes.
process of,
Yes.
growth, or we're in a process of stasis, and those things can be really good too. One of the hardest things to learn as an athlete, I found, was that, recovery is training,
Mm.
rest is
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
training.
Absolutely.
And it's the same with our lives, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes we go through seasons where,
Yeah.
maybe we're not accomplishing everything we had hoped for. Maybe we're
Yeah.
not able to, fully invest into, that goal or dream
Yeah.
because we have other responsibilities.
Yeah.
But that can be a real powerful time too, right? That can be a
Right.
real um, learning experience. So yeah, that ability to say, hey, you know what? I'm right here, right now.
Mm.
What can I do? And I
Mm.
learned that there's a huge difference between taking action and
Mm.
inspired action.
Mm. Big time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you're inspired, when you're
Mm-hmm.
in that form of action,
Mm-hmm.
you're really taking that life force energy and you're moving it and you're
Yeah.
creating from it.
Yeah.
And we can't always be in that space, right? Like
Right.
there's so much
Right.
energy that we've got in a day.
Yeah.
There's so much energy that we can focus on things. So
Yeah.
learning to, hold yourself to and allow yourself to just rest and
Yeah.
not always have to be go, 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 right? That's, you know,
Yeah.
we're not all David Goggins, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. That's for sure.
Um, but yeah, no, I love the way you explained it. That nailed it. That
Yeah.
status quo thinking.
I think what you're talking about as an athlete for yourself, and many people listening are, and many aren't. But that concept, though, is that recovery is training and just as important. One of the things, a lot of the work I do is I work one on one with primarily entrepreneurs and executives. And obviously, a lot of these people are very successful in their
Hmm.
career wise and financially. And that concept I think if we think from an athletic standpoint of we train hard and we recover, and I know this is a big part of your message, I find a lot of business people and a lot of leaders is that because they're so focused on creating career and financial success, they neglect a lot of what you've talked about already, the things that really light their heart up, light their soul up, that bring them joy. And to me, that balancing of energy is that if we're too heavy on, if you just train too much, your body's going to shut down, right? It's
Yeah.
not going to work too well.
Yeah.
If all you do is recover, I mean, it's going to get weak and atrophy, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the same thing in our business life and our professional life. And many, just so you know, most of our listeners are entrepreneurial type, professional type people.
Yeah.
And I know this is a big part of your message. I remember that talk we had the first day I met you is, finding some more of those things in your life that can bring joy to your life that you truly enjoy. I guess that radical getting back to the roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And then, what's really cool about that is that, I think I'm 60 years old, so I've learned to unbecome so much of what I thought I had to be to become what I truly want to be.
Can I interrupt? Can you give me an example? Can you give us an example of what you mean by that?
So even like growing up playing sports, I played football to a pretty high level.
Okay.
And there's kind of a mentality that goes with that. You build a character, you build a persona around that.
Sure.
And then you carry it forward. And, you've heard like the glory days, right? Like,
sure.
People sitting around talking about
the
glory days. Well, that was like 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Are there aspects of that I brought forward that have helped me to, write books and stuff? Sure, there is.
Right.
But I could have got really caught up in that mentality and that state of being and not moved out of it. So I learned to take the small components of that person and carry it forward.
Okay.
When I left my career after 37 years, same thing. Did I want to take everything I was as that, as that segment of my life and bring it forward? No, I didn't. Right.
Sure.
So you take the things that really resonate with where you want to go, that culture and that environment that you want to create. So there's, like looking back at my career as a young man, there were a lot of ego, a lot of ego involved and building through ego. And then as you get, you progress and I got older, I learned to be more of a mentor. So you deconstruct those things.
It's a great word.
Yeah. And it's such a beautiful thing to look back over your time and segments of your life and be able to, deconstruct that. And even those things that, I didn't bring along with me, I still loved them. They were a part of who I am. But to serve the higher purpose of what I want to accomplish, of what I want to help people accomplish, was to unbecome those things so I could become the full expression of where I'm going. And, when you're talking about the entrepreneurs and the people that you work with, one of the saddest things I saw in my career was high-level leaders that couldn't bring their passion, that couldn't bring those, things that might seem like they might not fit into the workplace. They wouldn't bring those things in. So they were trying to create a culture from, the way things are, the status quo, right? A business is supposed to run this way. You've got A, B, C, D, right? And so many leaders can get caught up in that component of their job, which is important, right? We've got structure, we've got that, we need that. But where's the fire? Where's that passion where you can come in and say, I'm CEO of this business, but I'm also, I'm Daniel, and this is who I am. I run and I ride and I love to, have conversations with people. I love to volunteer. We as a society, we are still learning to unbecome that separating those silos, right?
Mm,
So when you were talking about your entrepreneurs and those people that you work with, if they can understand how to bring that passion of who they are in those other areas into that culture and environment they're trying to create, you
mm-hmm,
know what it shows their employees, you know what it shows their people.
mm,
Wow, this is a real person. This
right,
is a person who is being authentic,
right.
who is being true
Yeah,
to what they really live.
yeah.
So when they stand up at a podium or when they bring out a new policy or something, it's not just this piece of paper that we're supposed to follow.
Mm-hmm,
It comes from that space of this is I'm passionate about this. This is what I believe in.
right.
And I think, you probably see that in different areas with different people, right? That, as they're progressing, and that's the beautiful thing. Like I say, I go back to, we're always in the process, right?
Mm-hmm,
And the process is, for me, what I've come to see when you're creating that culture and environment is to be the highest expression of yourself,
mm,
so that when you are, leading those people,
mm-hmm,
they're seeing reality. They're not seeing a fake construct of what you think
mm,
a leader needs to be, right? And that can be the good, the bad, the ugly, the snotty, the messy.
mm-hmm,
We we tend to put leaders on these pedestals and not expect them to make mistakes or to fail. But
yeah,
if they're not making mistakes and failing, well, they're not learning and growing either, right? So how is
for sure.
how is the company, or what their leadership style, how is it going to grow
Yeah.
if they're not, willing at times to do that? And that can be a really challenging thing for people, right?
Well, I think so much of it is it takes a lot of courage to, it's funny that this is how our society is, but to actually be authentic takes a lot
Hmm.
of courage because we are going against the status quo, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so much of what we're doing evolutionary, as you know, I mean, it's part of how we've been genetically programmed and environmentally programmed is to fit in
Yes.
for, not to be ostracized by the herd.
Yes.
But that comes at a major cost,
Huge
and,
cost.
and
Huge cost, right? When you
yeah.
when your objective is to fit in,
Mm-hmm.
you're willing, you're willing to become things that might not align with who you truly are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're and when you're willing to do that, it's it can be it can have such an impact on so many areas of your life, right?
Right. Right.
And that's where I go back to that
Mm-hmm.
unbecoming those things. And you said it, conscious, right? Like,
Mm.
to be conscious, to my I have a morning practice that I do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a set of exercises called the 5 Tibetan rites, and
Okay.
they take 12 minutes to do.
Okay.
So every morning, without fail, this is a non-negotiable in my life.
Mm.
I get up, and the
Mm-hmm.
first thing I do is the 5 Tibetan rites. It sets my energy up. So as a
Mm.
life force energy coach, consultant,
Mm-hmm.
I want to set my energy up to start the day. That's
Mm.
a conscious choice, right? Um, when we're able to consciously create
Mm-hmm.
something first thing in the morning when we get up,
Mm-hmm.
and we take control of that energy, because that's what it is. We're controlling it.
Mm-hmm.
Control can be a negative word, but for ourselves, we want to control,
Got to control the flow.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to get into that flow
Yeah.
in a, we want to jump in the river where we want to jump in, not where,
Right.
maybe we've got a whole bunch of stuff that day that we're not looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
So if we wake up and we're in a space where we go there automatically,
Yeah.
we're unconscious. right?
Yep.
We're
Yeah.
unconsciously giving our energy away to those things.
Yeah.
So to have that conscious ability to get up first thing in the morning and set your energy, you're creating a foundation, right? Like energy is everything. Matter is everything.
Yep.
So when you make that determination, and it's self-love. Like that was the thing I learned. I had to learn to love myself
Mm.
in order to give myself, you use the word courage,
Mm.
to step outside of the status quo
Mm.
and become that person that I wanted to be. And that first 12 minutes of the morning
Mm-hmm.
is what I want to do. I don't even I don't even allow my mind the opportunity to negotiate. The
Mm.
mind wants to negotiate. It's like,
All the time. Yeah.
yeah, I'll just lay here 5 more minutes,
That's right.
just
Yeah.
5 more minutes, or I'll pick up my phone and like five
Yeah.
reels. I'm just going to look at 5 reels. And,
Yeah.
the when you create a habit, when you create an intentional habit,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's amazing how much power that gives you,
Yeah.
like that personal sovereignty to just say, this is non-negotiable.
Right.
And I've got a friend. I got him into it, and he's got young kids. They get up and do it together.
No
This is
way.
now a
That's so
family
cool.
activity, and it's like I love it because he's teaching his kids, first of
Mm-hmm.
all, movement.
Mm.
He's modeling it, but
Mm.
he's teaching them that, what, this is how you set up the foundation for your day. So yeah, it's
Mm.
powerful. And it, I've done Ironmans, I've done all ultra marathons and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people think that movement has to be this radical thing, right? Like if you're watching the David Goggins, if you're watching
Sure.
those guys are next level. It's cool,
Right.
but your movement doesn't have to be this radical, intense stuff. Get up and
Mm-hmm.
go for a walk. Get up
Mm-hmm.
and, just some light calisthenics and stuff. But it really, it can define your day in a way what that will allow you to move into anything you face that day with that power based, I can
Mm.
do this mentality.
I got to tell you on the topic of movement, when I met you, this wasn't happening in my life. But what I had been doing was I'd been doing weight training 1 or 2 days a week the last couple of years. And yeah, we'd go for walks, stuff like that, which has been wonderful. But probably about a month ago, I, due to signing up for a Spartan race actually, but I decided to start running, which,
Nice.
I'm 37, never been a runner in my life. And the first couple of weeks, I was like, man, this sucks. Why would anybody run? I feel, and then I learned a little bit about pacing, which I didn't know. And, so I'm just gassing myself. But anyways, to make a long story short, my run started at, I'm doing like 1.5 kilometers, nothing. Right. And then to 2, and then 3.5. The other day did 4.5. So it'll be at 5. And I have to share with you, I know, cause you live it. And I'm sure many people, are like it. But in this month, my life has changed. I,
Nice.
I'm literally, I look forward to going for a run now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's such a great thing. So to your point, my whole point I'm making, I'm not doing any crazy runs. Nothing's long here. Nothing's big.
Yeah.
And it, in a short window, it's changed the way I feel. I'm making better choices in other areas of my life. I mean, it's been amazing.
Isn't it interesting? And you know what? Hey, you know what? First little bit, 1.5 kilometers, that's huge, dude. That's
Mm,
huge. It really
mm,
is. Like, you know, um, sometimes we quantify our efforts by comparing them to other efforts, right?
right,
So,
right.
I'll have people say, "Oh, I just did an Olympic marathon.
Mm-hmm,
Just did." So, 1.5 kilometer swim, 40 kilometer bike ride, and 10 kilometer run.
mm-hmm,
Oh, I just did that. No, that's badass.
mm,
That's amazing, right? That
mm,
is, you did that.
Right.
I just started off, my runs were a kilometer.
Sure.
That's fantastic.
Right.
That is amazing.
That's a good point.
It is
Yeah.
epic.
Yeah.
It is epic because if you had stopped, that 1 kilometer, if you let that be something, because I mean, you're a successful guy.
Mm.
You've done amazing things, right?
Mm.
If you looked at that 1 kilometer and went, oh man, and you quit, you wouldn't have seen the 30 days later where
Right.
you're at now,
Right.
right? Um, and word science is huge. I use the term word science, picking our narrative, picking our
Yes.
vocabulary.
Yeah.
So, and it's unconscious, and this isn't to, focus on you,
Mm.
but we do that often. Oh, I
Yeah.
just
I
went
did it
through it.
right there. Yeah.
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 Let's celebrate. Let's
Yeah.
celebrate
Right.
that 1 kilometer. And that's what I love. Like, there was a woman's only triathlon here in Drumheller in June. And so it's a try and a sprint. And a
Mm.
lot of these women, it was their first triathlon.
Mm.
Swimming was a challenge, and I volunteered. And I got to tell you, dude, like the amount of inspiration I got from, just being able to be in that space where these women were stepping up and doing this.
Mm.
That's those are the heroes,
Mm.
Um, at an Ironman, the most celebrated person is always the last person to cross the finish line.
Mm.
That's one of the biggest moments at an Ironman triathlon, because
Cool.
it's such an epic thing to see someone that's gone out there and spent 17 hours, or close to 17 hours, and they cross that finish line. And it's in
Right.
that community, it's a very big thing. And I think that it's an important what you talked about for yourself is a very important thing for people to understand, is that we all have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Totally. Yeah.
we're all one of my favorite sayings, I'll never be able to say his name right. He's a Zen master, but
Mm.
the saying is, in the beginner's mind there are many possibilities,
Mm.
in the expert's mind there are few.
Mm. Mm.
And I've always tried to show up as a beginner,
Yeah. It's a great.
no matter what I'm doing. Like, if I'm going into an Ironman, I want to show up as a beginner in that training.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the knowledge
Mm-hmm.
that I have of what I need to do, but I want to be a beginner in everything. And I think when we, as experts and leaders, when we can get around beginners,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great thing. When we can
Mm.
get around people that are just starting out on a journey or something,
Mm-hmm.
that's a
Mm-hmm.
great thing, because that energy, it's contagious,
It
and
is. Yeah.
we'll eat it up. And
Yeah.
um, I think I'll jump into cellular level belief.
Mm.
I'm a very big believer that we can talk to ourselves. So I
Sure.
meditate, and
Yeah.
through movement,
Yeah.
at a cellular level, we can change. We can
Yeah.
consciously create that, right?
Yeah.
Um, cool. I want to hear how your Spartan race goes. Tell, when you're done it, message me, because those things are amazing. I've never done one.
Yeah.
I've looked at them.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of levels, but again, what a cool concept to get people moving, to get people
Yeah.
believing in themselves. And
Yeah.
is it Joe DeSena? I've read his books.
Dispenza. Yeah.
Dispenza, yeah.
Yeah.
I've read his books, and they're next level, right?
Yeah.
But you changed yourself at a cellular level by saying, okay, I'm gonna start
Totally.
running,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
And running is kind of weird, like it's kind of a weird thing to put on, shoes and clothes and go out and run
Mm-hmm.
just for the sake of running. You're not running away from anything,
Right.
which we're hardwired for.
Right.
But when you make that conscious choice
Mm-hmm.
to say, okay, I'm going to stick with this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll bet you there was days that you were putting your shoes on and you didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to go out there,
Mm-hmm.
but you stuck with it. So, making that commitment to yourself, is that racing death.
Right.
It,
Yeah.
it's that it's that radical pursuit to say, you know what,
Yeah.
I've said I'm going to do this,
Right.
and that's self love, right? Like when you make that commitment to yourself, and you can see results at a cellular level,
Mm-hmm.
and then isn't it kind of interesting how all of a sudden your thoughts start to think about how you're going to change things in
Oh
other
yeah.
areas of your life?
Absolutely. Yeah. All positive change impacts other stuff for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so cool.
and it just kind of falls in line, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's that building of that life force energy.
Yeah.
And I'll go to the rewilding
Yes.
aspect of it. So,
It
and
sounds really cool, by the
yeah,
way.
it totally is.
Oh,
And it's not a concept that I came up with, but I've
okay.
developed my own sense of what it is.
Sure.
So, rewilding is the process of using our nature and the nature of the world
Mm,
to re-engage
mm,
and reignite our primal and savage energies.
mm,
Okay, and now I'll speak to this for men,
mm,
in a sense, because I work more with men,
mm,
but it works the same for women too.
mm,
We're primal beings.
mm,
We are savages,
mm,
and we've learned to be compliant, which is good. We don't want to walk around and be all primal and savage all the time.
yeah.
But with the status quo, we have lost so much of that primal nature
Mm,
that makes us want to go out and run,
mm,
that makes us want to jump into cold, icy
mm,
water,
mm,
that makes us want to sign up for a Spartan race.
mm,
Um, Going back to the racing death thing, I know a lot of men who are incredibly successful.
mm,
They've got everything that they thought they wanted,
mm,
that the world says would, even increase their success.
mm,
But they get to a certain age and they feel empty.
mm.
They feel lost because
Yeah.
this stuff isn't meeting that primal nature, right?
Right.
So unfortunately, marriages end for all the wrong reasons in
Mm,
a lot of cases because, you know, and I'm not just going to point at men, but as a male, I can look at this a little bit better, right?
mm,
When we're able to get into that primal energy and that savage energy and do things like a Spartan race or go to the gym, you know, um, get up in the morning and set the intention to walk a kilometer.
mm,
Now we're in the primal.
mm,
Now we are going to that space as a man where we are saying,
mm,
I'm sovereign,
mm,
right? We're taking ourselves out of that status quo thinking. We're taking ourselves out of that, that puzzle that's so easy to put together,
mm,
but it doesn't ignite in us the love, the passion, the ability to really live life in a way that we design it. So,
mm.
um, yeah, it's a cool thing when you can get into rewilding. And um, I've got a big elm tree that I go out every day and I hug.
Mm,
I hug my elm tree because there's an exchange of energy.
mm.
Barefoot in the grass, all
Yeah.
all this stuff that there's a million people talking about it. It's not something that
Oh, 100%, man.
You know, I'm not the groundbreaker here,
Yeah.
but it really works. You know,
It totally works.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
I'm
and
Go ahead.
it you know, it can save so many relationships. It can take those CEOs and those executives to the next level
Mm,
of their leadership,
mm,
because this is inherently who they are,
mm,
right? You know, people don't just rise to levels that they're at just by chance.
mm-hmm,
There's a drive inside of them that is primal, that is pushing them to that.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a very cool thing to just kind of let yourself go, let that
Yes.
wild side of yourself come out. And it's not about, the going out and drinking and all that stuff. It's just about getting back into nature.
Yeah.
There's I'll never remember the Japanese term, but they have a practice called forced bathing,
Oh yeah.
where
Yeah.
you just go out into nature, and I can tell you it works.
Yeah.
It really works.
Yeah. I'm we haven't talked about this before, but I have to tell you, I'm so I never have heard the term rewilding, but I'm so big on that stuff. And I think for anyone watching and or listening, is that as Daniel talks about it, I mean, the science is there to back all this stuff too. That's the amazing part. I mean, obviously, for thousands and thousands of years as a species and both spiritually, I mean, this is stuff that's not new information. Now we have so much science that tells us, yes, what's happening, whether it's forest bathing, whether it's grounding, whether it's, jumping into some ice cold water. I mean, all
Yeah,
these amazing, getting sunlight. I'm obviously a redheaded guy
yeah,
and pretty fair skinned. And I have to tell you, I used to be afraid of the sun because of all this stuff I had heard, all this shit I had heard about, you got to be really careful and all that. And I'm still mindful, don't get me wrong. But when I changed my belief, Daniel, when I changed my belief about the sun, where I was so afraid of it, and guess what? I would get burned quite easily. Now, every day I spend time in the sun.
nice.
And very rarely, I'd be lying if it said it never happens, but very rarely do I ever get burnt. Now I'm smart about it still. I got to,
Yeah,
and, but it's so many of these little practices,
yeah,
getting sunlight. When I walk in the forest, I'm always touching the trees. I'll walk by and so I love it.
yeah.
I 100% relate to what you're talking about.
Well, and you know what? Like, there's so much beauty in what you just said,
Mm,
because you know, and I'm just going to paraphrase.
mm,
Redheaded,
mm-hmm,
fair skinned,
mm-hmm,
had been told, be careful.
mm-hmm.
You know, almost conditioned,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, for sure.
You
Conditioned.
know, and again, let's always be smart, right? Like that's one of the things we have an ego for, is because it keeps us
Right.
safe,
Right.
right? The ego will keep us from going to the edge of a cliff and stepping off because
Totally.
we're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
But the ego will also create unnecessary
Mm,
boundaries
mm-hmm.
because of what it's told constantly,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
So you make a conscious choice. It's like, I don't know if you follow Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
He talks about it, right? Like, go out and stare at the sun without
Yeah.
glasses, right?
Yeah.
What? Crazy. Are you? No, we've been told never stare at the sun. Like, that's the worst thing you can do in the world, right?
Mm,
I go out every morning and I stare at the sun for
mm,
5 minutes,
mm.
because that sunlight, the science is showing, as organisms, we need that,
Yeah.
and it fuels us and it
Yeah.
creates health, right?
Yeah.
So you make this conscious choice to go out and do this, and I could see it as you were talking about it. It shifted you as an
Mm,
individual. It
mm,
shifted your life, right?
mm, mm-hmm,
And that's the amazing thing, and that's what rewilding is. It's
mm,
about, what? So you like to go out in the sunlight.
mm-hmm.
Someone else might find that it's water first thing in the morning,
Right.
getting into water.
Right.
There's a cool thing called blue mind therapy,
Mm,
and it talks about the power for us as humans to be in, on, or around water.
mm,
So we're born from water, right? We're in our mother's
mm-hmm,
womb. It's
mm-hmm,
water. So there's
mm-hmm,
that comfort
mm-hmm.
there. this world of science
Mm-hmm.
is so expansive.
Mm-hmm.
We live in such a great time
Mm-hmm.
with all of this science that is showing ways we can be healthy through movement, through the environment and stuff. And I always encourage people, find what works for you,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like I'll try everything I can,
Right.
and I'll be like, no, I don't get it. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
work for me,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll have tried it. So, and it's like, being a leader or everything,
Mm-hmm.
find your style, try new things, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we create those boundaries around our ego
Mm-hmm.
that keep us kind of on that path, right? Where we're not racing death.
Right. Right.
We're stuck in that status quo. This has always worked, well, it worked for so and so, so I'm going to do it because if it worked for so and so,
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to do it.
Right.
Well, sometimes that can just be a recipe for it's going to suck. It's not going to work.
Totally. And I think the opposite too is that we'll hear things like, oh, that didn't work for me. So then people will not do these things where
Yes.
you just go try, right? You know,
Yeah.
um, Daniel, I think you and I could probably talk for days. So I'm excited when we hang out again next time,
Yeah.
whenever that is. But I
Yeah.
want to make sure people know where to find you, how they can connect with you just as we wrap up here. So maybe tell us a little bit about the best places to connect with you, find you.
Yeah. So got a website, Daniel O'Neill Consulting. O'Neill is spelled Oneill. So it's just Daniel O'Neill Consulting. You can get a hold of me through that.
Okay.
Facebook,
Okay.
Daniel O'Neill Consulting. Instagram, Daniel O'Neill Consulting. So that's where I am. It's pretty straightforward.
Beauty.
Yeah, and I love connecting with people. So if anybody wants to even just chat about this, what they hear on here, you know what, reach out. Like it's I'm an open book. If something resonated with you, let's chat, because that's how we get better. That's a part of that primal energy of just going after life and living the highest expression of who you are.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, I'm so grateful we met the day that we did. And
Right?
I know we had that immediate connection far beyond just our words. So thank you for taking the time today and sharing with everybody. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, and everyone have a great day. It's life is worth living. Get out there and do it.
that's right. All right. We'll see you soon, everyone.